Welcome to Seattle College's international programs and our show Conversations With, where we talk to people that help you understand how you too can be an international student in the United States and why Seattle Colleges should be your first choice. We'll talk to students and staff and agents and government folks, all kinds of people about what you can expect when you're getting ready to apply or travel here, what you'll experience while you're with us, and how it can all lead to an amazing life. Don't forget to check out the Seattle College's International Programs website at intl.seattlecolleges.edu, where you can find a treasure trove of information about the school, the programs here, and best of all, fill out and submit your application. Again, that's intl.seattlecolleges.edu. Hey everybody, Happy New Year from Big Lake, Washington, just outside of Seattle, Washington. I'm here on my holiday, but I wanted to say Happy New Year and let you know that this episode is quite important. The question we probably hear the most is, do you guys have scholarships? Or what kind of money is available to me? This episode is going to answer that question, so pay close attention. And remember to apply for the Foundation Scholarship. It opens up for application middle part of January, which is coming right up. Happy New Year! Hey everybody, welcome back to Seattle College's Conversations With. We're here at Seattle Central today. Very excited because one of the first questions we usually get as recruiters is, hey, do you guys have scholarships? And today we're excited to welcome Jasmine Meraz about the scholarship, the big one that we offer. And I got to tell you, there's a lot to be learned here. So listen very carefully if you're interested in getting money to help pay for your education. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Yeah, no, it's great. So I want to get right into it. The big scholarship that we offer is the Foundation Scholarship. And that's who you work for, yeah?
That is my forte. That is my specialty.
That's right. But the Foundation Scholarship is a big thing. So let's just get into, first of all, before we start talking about the Foundation Scholarship, let's learn a little bit about Jasmine. So did you go to school at Seattle Central?
Not Seattle Central. I went to grad school at the University of Washington.
Oh, you did?
So I got my master's there, and then I did my undergrad at Oregon State University.
So you were a beaver.
Very Pacific Northwest of me.
So no community college for you
No,
at
I
all?
did community college in high school, but in Oregon. So my high school did a pilot program, similar to Seattle Promise here.
Oh, okay.
And I did that for a year. So luckily, saved myself a couple $1,000s just by taking those classes. So
are you from Corvallis?
No. So I grew up in a very small town, I guess south of Salem, north of Corvallis, called Monmouth, Oregon.
Oh, yeah.
Very small school.
There's a great university in Monmouth.
There's a great university there, yes.
And which one is it?
Western Oregon University.
Yes, it is. Yeah, that's where my wife got her degree.
It's a great school. My best friend went to school there. So.
Yeah, it's a great town.
Yes.
Check it out. Yeah, Monmouth's a great little town. So, okay, well, you didn't go to community college, but, you did a little bit through high school and stuff. And then how did you make your way to Seattle Colleges in Foundation Scholarship?
Yeah, so I was working in Tumwater in the ESD. Yeah. So K through 12 education. I was a behavioral health navigator there.
Oh, cool.
Great work. But I always saw myself in some form of scholarship or support programs. Most of my work as a student undergrad was all within student services. So I was involved in CAMP, which is the College Assistant Migrants Program at Oregon State, which is a federally funded program. I was also in TRIO. So,
me too.
Round full circle moment. Yeah. And then I had a friend who actually works for EDIC here, and I had asked them about opportunities here. They were here for a couple of years, and they said that they liked the job, they liked the environment, and so I kind of just took a whim and applied, and here I am.
There you are. And how long have you been here then?
Almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years. Me too. We must have started.
So a year and 10 months now.
I started just a little ahead of you then. I started in August. You must have been.
I was February of 2023.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Well, cool. Let's get into Foundation. So, the big question is, what is the Foundation Scholarship? Let's start there.
Yes. So the Foundation Scholarship, or scholarships, however you want to say it, is a encompassing application that we match students to scholarships based on your program. If you have specific needs, so say like you're in fire science at North, for example, we have a scholarship that's specific to that. If you're in graphic design, there's specific scholarships that may be just for graphic design students. And of course, there's a verification program that we check in with the programs to ensure that you're actually enrolled in the program. Because obviously, whoever is donating those dollars to the student scholarship, they want to ensure that it's going to students in those programs.
Gotcha.
But we also have general scholarships that don't necessarily have to be in one or the other, whether a student's just trying to get their transfer degree, whether they're just taking classes here and there. We try to make it as simple as possible, but essentially it's one application that opens the door for 300 plus scholarships that we have available.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Well, when I looked at your website, I saw like 7 different.
Yeah, and those are just some of the highlighted scholarships that we had that were very, very niche into specific programs. But we have a plethora of different scholarships that are available for students.
So you really make it easier for our students to be able to tap into a lot of different scholarships.
Because it's easier for you to have one application, and then we match you to as many scholarships as you qualify for, instead of you having to opt into one application, then another application, and that's a lot of work to do, especially if you're re-entering the same information over and over. So here it's just one application, 3 statements, and we are the ones that are matching you to a scholarship that best describes you in your situation.
Interesting. So let's get into the application then, because in order for you to match them up, obviously you need to know a lot about them, I'm guessing. So can you talk about the application process? So you're going to want to apply for this, and it's open for
all students. So incoming students, prospective students, current students, all students are able to apply. Even if you're not sure if you're going to get in or not, even if you are awarded, you can always deny the scholarship. Say you end up going somewhere else. Say, you decide to go to a different community college or a different institution. It's no bad on you. Nothing goes off fault. But the scholarships do stay within the colleges, so you're not able to take that scholarship somewhere else. So that is something that we need to also make sure we know, that even though you receive a scholarship from us, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's transferable to another institution.
So this foundation scholarship is specific to Seattle colleges?
To Seattle colleges,
Like it doesn't also belong to Edmonds or Bellevue
just
or anything?
Us. Okay. And so we have scholarships that are for district-wide, so a student can be at, Central this quarter, and then the other 2 quarters they may be transferring to North because that's the program that they're in.
Sure.
If the scholarship is eligible, they're able to transfer that over. But we also have scholarships that you have to be a student at that campus to receive it.
Gotcha.
And can only receive it at that campus.
Are there awards available for students who go to, say, the wood technology program or the maritime?
Yep.
Or whatever? Okay.
Yep, we have a lot. We actually don't get as many students as we would like in the wood tech and maritime, and those are definitely some of the programs that we have the most funding for. It's just the timeline doesn't always work for the students because of their enrollment. Sometimes they don't start enrolling into the program until maybe spring quarter, and by then we had already closed the application. Sure. And so we're working on that now with maritime and wood tech to try to see if we're able to move things around so that way we can disperse scholarships for their students.
Right.
But on top of that, the only other things that are required is a 2.0 GPA, cumulative GPA. And even if you don't have a 2.0 GPA, that's not to discredit that, not to apply. We look at your whole application, not just the GPA. That's just for current students to ensure that they meet their guidelines to be able to be in good standing with the college.
Right.
So it's mainly for that. And then, of course, their personal statements that we always have available on our website that states what the questions are and then helpful tips of how to write it.
Yes.
Us at the foundation, we're not able to help you with the scholarship statements. We can guide you as to what reviewers may be looking at, but we always highly encourage students to go to the writing centers, peer review, go to a different tutoring center if you're not able to go on campus to get some form of support with the statements, since that's usually what gets graded at the highest amount in our application. And then, of course, transcripts, if you have them, whether that's a high school or other colleges or universities that you have attended. Resumes optional. Some students really like having their resumes on there. Some don't. Again, it's optional, so the student nothing happens to them if they don't have it.
Okay. So that's a lot of information in a very fast word. So I want to reiterate for the listeners out there, you can be a prospective student. I want to really highlight that. So apply before you even come or before you even get accepted. That's really important. If the GPAs, so in some countries, like my markets are Latin America, Africa, and the Middle East. And, some students don't necessarily have a GPA. So what do those students do? They just supply.
They can still submit the transcript that they have from their home country. We just look at it to see if they have any other educational background, whether they have bachelor's degrees or have an associate's or just a high school diploma elsewhere. We'll look at everything else in the case that the student is not able to provide it. Okay. The only people that see it is the admin team, and no one else sees it, so no one else would know where your transcript is coming from other than myself and my director.
Right. Okay.
And so that's just like a leniency thing of we would like students to have it if they have it available, but it's not like detriment if they aren't able to have it.
Okay. Wow, so many things to talk about. So one of the things is there's no fee to apply for.
Yes, it is free to apply and submit.
Free to apply and
submit. Never apply to a scholarship that requires you to pay. You should never be paying for an application for scholarships.
Good to know.
Because the concept of a scholarship is that they're giving you money, not the other way around.
Right. That's a good point, actually. Okay, so it's free to apply. It does cost you a little time. So you mentioned very quickly, so I want to break it down a little bit. Lots of different elements to the application. So the first thing is there's just general information, right?
So that's
name, address.
Your name, address, your ethnicity, race, and all of those you can write in. You can leave them how you want if you don't wish to disclose them. If it doesn't have a optional, that means it's a required question. And so even if you're not able to, say, put like a home address, say if you're not living in Seattle or in King County currently, you could just put like NA or something in place so that way it marks the question as complete.
Gotcha.
Because if it's not marked complete, it will not let you submit it. And that's always the hard part.
Sure. Okay, and then let's talk briefly about the statement, or these are essays that they have to write. There's three, okay.
Yep, so there's a personal, a purpose, and financial.
Say that again slowly.
Purpose, personal, financial.
There you go. So can you talk about each one of those?
Yep. So they're all kind of similar in question, to be honest. The way I like to think about it is you want all your statements to kind of align together. And so each statement should kind of tell different parts of the story of who you are as a student without repetitive information. And so in your personal story, you may want to say something along like maybe an educator or something that inspired you to get to want to apply in the first place. So that could be an experience that you've had. Say you had a really good mentor and that mentor happened to go to this college or whatever it might be, and maybe they're the ones who kind of guided you to go to whether this college or that college, whatever be. Your purpose is kind of where does your personal story align into what you want to do academically as a career. So, if you want to be, say, like a mental health therapist, like where are your goals with that? Like what inspires you to want to do those things?
Cool.
How do you feel either the college or you with your story is going to be able to achieve those things? And your financial statement is just that, more so, if you're an international student, especially the costs of coming to, the United States and studying is already very expensive. And so those are the things we want to know, is that what is this additional expense to you getting a college education doing for you? So because you're an international student, you may not be able to work, right? Which is a case for a lot of international students. And so receiving a scholarship would help with the cost, right, that you are associated with, not just academically, but outside fees that you don't think about, like books and transportation, maybe, that students often don't think about when they're coming to college. They just assume cost of attendance is just everything, but it's not. It's not everything that goes with to going to college. And so all three of those things are less than 300 words, so pretty short. We always suggest to reread it to yourself before you submit it. Definitely check your grammar, because that is the one thing that reviewers do like to check for. And then some translation services aren't the best. And so if you write it in whatever your native language is, it may not translate to the system.
Right.
And so currently our system only allows for English to be the written language. Not to say that I'm a Spanish speaker so I can read Spanish, but the reviewers who may be reviewing your application may not. Right. And so then they can't score you on your statements because they can't read it.
They can't read it, yeah. So yeah, use Grammarly is a great tool to check your grammar. And if you're already in country, there are a number of other resources for them. They can go get tutoring.
There's tutoring that's offered locally through the county. The public library is a great service. King County has a great public library system that has tutoring, mentoring, just other sources that you may need to no additional cost to you, of course. So if you have that available, definitely go.
We have a writing center.
And we have a writing center here.
At each of the campuses.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. What would be, it just occurs to me, it's like, what's the downside? Like, why would someone not bother applying for a foundation scholarship?
Often the most that we get is either because they haven't completed their FAFSA or their WASFA, which again, our application, we don't consider the FAFSA or WASFA as an indicator to receive our scholarship because we have a lot of international students and DACA and undocumented students, and so we don't want that to create an inhibitor for them not applying.
Right.
If they've been out of school for a long time, especially, at a community college, junior college, often students are discouraged because, say, they've been in the workforce for a lot of years. So we definitely don't want that to be a reason but we see often is the case. And then the time to apply.
It does take time to apply.
The application may take you as fast as an hour or a week or 2 weeks to do, depending on how quickly. The parts that are going to take you the longest are the statements. And so even on the first day when it opens, which hits January 15th of 2025,
be ready.
Everything else you can get done, even if those things take you a week to 2 weeks, 3 weeks to do. Our statements are also always available on our website. And so even if things change, sometimes the only thing that'll change are like the helpful tips for writing it. But the questions relatively always stay the same year by year.
Gotcha. So website, can you give the listeners your website so they know where to go?
www.seattlecollegesfoundation.com. And then on the right-hand side, it'll have a menu option. Go down to scholarship information, and that's where you will find everything you can possibly find regarding our application and our system and questions. We even have FAQs for students. And even then, if you have additional questions, we do have our emails available as well.
Right. And we can help you as well. If you are an international student and you're applying to Seattle colleges, you can reach out to your regional representative and they can point you in the right direction or they can get that information for you. So that's good to know. One of the other things that I get asked quite a bit often is about the references. They have to have 2, yeah?
So currently this year we had changed it where it was only 1 required and 1 optional.
Okay.
And so even if students aren't able to have references, while it's highly encouraged, often there are students who don't have someone that they can, either because they're still in high school or they've been out of school or they really are a commuter student where they really just go to class and that's all they're able to do. And so we also don't want students to feel discouraged by that. So there is leeway around that. Often we tell students that if they aren't able to have a reference or they don't think anyone's will be able to be a reference in that amount of time, we always suggest maybe just putting either your own name and email just so the system marks it as complete. Of course, we would love students to have references if they're able to, but we also understand that every student situation is a bit different.
Sure.
And so if they have questions regarding those references, they can always email me for more specifics along that.
But I personally would encourage you to be creative thinking about this. You can do teachers, you can do youth group leaders, you can do religious leaders. There's a lot of people you probably know in your community.
The only people we currently tell that you cannot have is family members.
Yes, right.
Or if you have, say, family friends of some kind, as soon as they mention that you have a familial relationship,
right,
it may not be qualified as a reference because now they have some form of family tie to you.
Right.
But anybody else, mentor, coach, teacher, counselor, nurse, caseworker, plethora of options.
Yeah, if you're a young person out there or even not young, do some volunteer work, let people get to know you, get out there in the community, and then it's a nice way for people to vouch for your qualities, both character and work ethic, that kind of stuff. That's really good to know. So the application opens in January, and from what I understand, it's a couple months. The window's only open for a couple months.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the application opens January 15th. And then it closes March 18th, 11:59
March 18th.
Pacific Standard Time.
Good to know.
So as long as you get it in, I would even say before 11:59, because if there's too many people on the site, it will crash. And we monitor it throughout the night of the application, but we also don't want to stay up until midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, monitoring it. So we would suggest at least like maybe try to finish it by 10 p.m. the latest that night if you really can't get to it. Just because sometimes questions may not load the way you want them to. Maybe something you're trying to upload isn't uploading right. And so you just want to give yourself enough time to do it.
Sure, yeah. Be mindful of the time zones, guys. If you're over in Africa or Middle East, that's that's a big change. But I recommend getting it done early. Yep. I mean, it opens in January. Don't wait till middle of March to do your application for sure. Okay, and then once it closes, you guys are reviewing. How long does it take for them to get a response back?
Yeah, so usually it takes us another month and a half to get to a completion part. And so after the application closes on the 18th, we do a review check for applications. So it could be that students did complete it, but the submit button wasn't working, and most of the students will email us. So we have to go in and check the system, and that usually takes us about 2 days or so to do. And then from there, students will get put into assignments from the reviewer side, so that way they can actually be reviewed and scored. That usually takes us about 2 weeks to a month to do, depending on how quickly reviewers are able to complete. They also have their own timeline that they have.
Sure.
And then from there, the matching takes another 2 weeks to 3 weeks.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
And so like I said, we match you to scholarships that best describes your application. Especially for international students or undocumented students, we want to ensure that you're going to qualify for the scholarships that you're able to qualify for. Right. Just because of the status issue, we don't want it to be an issue for you, tax purposes. So we're very, very diligent about putting you into the correct scholarship group. That way there's no issues down the line when you have to complete any other paperwork. And so usually we would say around middle of May is when we'll notify. So the goal is always before the end of spring quarter, especially for students who have anticipations of starting summer of that year, which is often is the case for a lot of international students. And so from there, students get another 2 weeks to complete if they decide to accept a scholarship. They have 2 weeks to complete what's called a post-acceptance questionnaire.
This is really important, so listen carefully.
So this includes student bio, so obviously talking about yourself, your name, and the quarters that you indicated for enrollment, and then the campus. And so the campus part is important because if you selected, say, Central, for example, and actually you're going to be at North, you should notify us, let us know through email as well, because some of our scholarships are not going to be able to be transferable to North, even though they are a district-wide system. And so we don't want students to then, like, down the line be like, oh, but I thought I had this scholarship. And it's, the scholarship, you can only have it at this campus. And so the sooner the better. And so that's often what we use the post-acceptance for.
Right. Well, I saw a note about nursing students. What if they change majors? I mean, should they notify you if they change majors?
Yes, that as well. So often what happens in those more program-specific scholarships like nursing is we will email the dean or the program administrator of the program to verify enrollment. And so they will give us, at least for nursing, they give us like a quarter system. So we'll know the students' anticipated quarters to be enrolled and at what campus.
Gotcha.
And so we'll have that information beforehand. And so we wouldn't even, either we will or won't give the scholarship to a student based on that verification. And so it makes it a little bit easier. That's why when I say we really try our best to match it to a scholarship, we are very, very much like line by line looking at everything when your enrollments are versus the program to make sure that you're going to be able to receive your money.
Gotcha. Well, with so many scholarships out there, you talked about what, 300 plus or whatever. I mean, what's the maximum amount of money someone might get?
The most on average is, we like to say around $4,700 to $5,000.
Okay.
Which for a community college is a very great
That's
number.
Almost half, yeah.
Of course, if you get other scholarships on top of that, like we are one foundation and then South Seattle College Foundation has a separate application. And so It could be that you get scholarships from both of them because we don't intermingle in those sense. So if you're an international student who is looking to be at South, you could apply to both South Foundation and Seattle Colleges Foundation.
Wow, that's it. I did not know that. And does North and Central have their own? No.
So it's just South, and it's only for students at South taking courses at South. So unless you're 100% certain that you're going to be at South, apply. But if you're not, their scholarships do not transfer over to Central or North.
Okay.
And so there's some students who love that campus. It is a great campus, and it might be a great campus for you.
And this is a compelling reason maybe to go to South. More scholarship opportunities. Interesting. How many internationals? I mean, how much competition is there? I mean, we have over 1,000 international students. Of those, how many international scholarship applications do you see?
Let's see. So this year we had around over 1,200 applicants, and about total. Yes, that was total.
Okay.
And maybe I want to say almost a fourth of the applicants were international students, and that could be either the student didn't indicate international or that they did at some point of the application. And so sometimes the numbers look a little rough depending on how the student writes it into the system themselves. Some students don't put anything in, so we can't identify if they are or they're not.
Gotcha.
So we could have anywhere between 300 students that are international students to maybe 800. We really don't know.
Okay.
Or students who have started the application but never completed it, which is a whole other number, which often is the case for a lot of international students, is they'll start the application but they won't actually complete it.
Well, maybe I should ask then, how many international students received awards?
It depends by campus.
Okay.
So I top of my head, maybe anywhere from like 30 to 50 students per campus.
Okay, so that's...
Give or take. It depends, like I said. It changes every year, and it depends, of course, if you actually end up enrolling. And so that's a different number that we wouldn't have until the student came on campus.
But even the rough numbers you're telling me, what that indicates to me is that a lot of you current students aren't applying. So guys, apply. There's no harm in applying.
Yeah.
The worst case is that you don't get the scholarship. Best case is you could save a lot of money towards your tuition, and then you can use it later when you go to your 4-year.
Yep.
Let's talk about that transfer process for a sec. So if they go from here to the 4-year, does the money follow them?
No.
Oh, it doesn't?
It does not. So all of our scholarships are a academic basis, and so they only are concurrent during the academic year which they receive it and apply. And so currently for the students of this year, it's they're only eligible for summer 24, fall 24, winter 25, spring 25. Any remaining dollars that remain unused will go back into the pool of that scholarship.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And that's something we don't have control over.
Sure.
That was just something that when we came in, that was the notification, just because the dollars they want them to be used for Seattle Central or district-wide students.
Right. Okay, so let's say they start in spring. So they wouldn't use money in the fall, they wouldn't use money in the winter. They could start using the money in spring?
It depends. So our annual cycle application, the earliest you would receive it, so if you apply, in this case for this current cycle, right, it was January 15th through March 15th. Notification went out May of 2024, and students were able to use it as early as summer quarter 2024.
They could use it summer.
But if you're say for whatever reason you weren't able to be enrolled fall quarter, but you received a scholarship for this year, you still have 2 other quarters of eligibility, and so you would still have winter and spring quarter that you could use it. But anything after that, it is essentially lost dollars for the student.
So let's say they win. Let's just say they get the maximum award of $5,000. If they're only going to have 2 quarters of eligibility, can they use all 5,000 of it?
Yeah, we could. Students have the option to request a one-time amendment form. So say in the application they originally put 3 quarters and they're actually going to only be enrolled for 2 quarters. They could request an amendment form from us, but it's a one-time per year, and that's for any change that you want to make to your award.
I didn't know that.
So if a student, for whatever reason, say, oh, I thought I was going to be enrolled for 3 quarters, but I only need to be enrolled for 2 quarters, I need to request an amendment form. We will change the terms of disbursement so that, say, $5,000 instead of between 3 quarters, it would be 2 quarters. But the financial aid is the final determinant. They are the ones who determine how much you actually received based on your credit amount and then, of course, your status. So if you're an international student, you're already paying a higher percentage compared to a resident, non-resident tuition. And so it's going to vary as well.
Interesting. And just so you guys know, they don't just get a check, right? You just don't have it. It
goes directly through your account as a student through the Bank Mobile if there's a refund to be made. And so no check is ever sent from us or the financial aid office of a refund of any amount to you. It goes directly to your student account. And then the financial aid office, they're the ones who manually, which I didn't know, manually have to go through each student's award and input the correct amount per whatever, which takes a lot of time, which is why some students may see delays in their awards. And often it's because if you're changing credits, say you're going from 15 credits enrolled to 9, they have to make those adjustments.
Oh, gotcha.
And so it takes a while. Or you go from 9 credits to 12 credits. Again, you have to make those adjustments to the awards.
Of course, if you're an international student, don't forget you have to be doing at least 12 in order to maintain your visa status. So stick at 12. Let's say they start a quarter and then for some reason, let's say grandma gets sick, so they have to leave the country before coming back. What happens? So they get a refund? What happens?
So if they're going to be back within the same quarter, again, you would still request that amendment form and say, hey, I had originally said that I was going to be enrolled fall, winter, and spring, but I have a family emergency and I'm not going to be enrolled winter quarter. But still planning to be enrolled for spring. They would still request an amendment form. We would make that note change and let the financial aid office know, hey, this student notify us that they're not going to be enrolled, so we need to move the dollars around to receive that what they would have got in winter quarter for spring.
Cool. Really interesting. Now, in what I've been telling students, so I hope this is correct, is that they can apply every year.
Yes.
So you can apply.
So even if you weren't awarded one year, that doesn't mean you won't be awarded the next year. If you're awarded one year, you may be re-awarded again. There's just no way of knowing. It all depends on how you get scored. And so that's how we base our system is students to score anywhere from a 90, and it's based out of 25 points. And so a student who gets 100% or a 25 out of 25 may be eligible for the highest amount of scholarships available. But again, it'll be based on maybe you're in a specific program, maybe you're only going to be enrolled for 1 quarter. And so there's a lot of back and forth computer work for us trying to match you to a scholarship. That doesn't say that students who score less won't, because we also still filter the system. So we will go based on like all students who are science in a science program. It doesn't matter what, just say science. And it'll just give us a list and we'll go through everything as much as we can to select a student.
So is there a particular major that gets a lot more consideration than others? Nope. So there's not more money available for, say, computer science majors than for, say, drama majors?
Yes and no. I think it also depends on what the enrollment looks like for those programs those years. If that scholarship is available that year. It could also just be like if the student is actually enrolled in those programs, because again, we still have to go through a verification program. And it is a lot of work, but luckily all of the program administrators do a really great job of letting us know that, or they'll say, just give me the names and I'll verify for you, or the other way around where they will give us the list of the students. So often that's like the carpentry programs, wood tech will always send us like which programs they're in, graphic design, culinary, fire science, watch tech, those programs they'll send us, often because we have 1 or 2 scholarships designated for students in those programs. But we also have scholarships that are very broad where anybody could get it. And so say if we have 2 students in a watch technology program, right, at North specifically, and they have, say, 2 scholarships available for $5,000, right, as an example. Not saying this is what it is. This is just plain example. And they only have 2 students in that program that applied, well, we are going to get them to them, and then the other general scholarship that could also be $5,000, we could give it to another student.
Gotcha. What about other categories like, say, gender or race or... Nope.
Nope. So specifically, all we look at is program enrollment. That is something we are very...
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Very good. So we have a lot of different programs at Seattle colleges. Most people come here for 2+2. They do 2 years, then they transfer. But we also have things like short-term certificates. We have intensive English program. We have vocational technical programs. Is the scholarship good for any of those programs?
No.
No.
So the only programs currently that the scholarships aren't eligible for is students who are in like ELL courses or BTS courses, only because their classes aren't graded on a credit scale, and so it's different.
So are international students that come here and before they're able to take college, they have to bring their English level up? So they're in SCIE, they're in the intensive English program.
Those closures don't count because they're not enrolled in a program or a study.
Oh.
And so in their transcript, it won't show as a letter grade or credits.
Gotcha.
And that's a whole other thing that I didn't even understand when I came to this college. And so essentially, if a student is transferring out of those programs, then yes. Because then when they upload their transcript, because it'll still show like ELL 5, 6, 7 or BTS, whatever it may be. And then the student will tell us like, oh, we have indication that we're going to be now fully enrolled in the program, say computer science. Then that's all we need. But they have to be graduating from those programs into math, I don't know, 215,
sure,
writing 44, whatever it may be.
Right. Interesting. Okay. I didn't know that. So we also have a high school completion plus program, and those students have to be 16 by the first day of classes to start. But you know, our students can apply up to 15 months in advance, so they might be 14 and a half years old when they're applying.
Yeah.
Is there an age limit for... No? Anybody can...
No. I mean, our oldest student that we had on our application, I believe, was like over 80.
What?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then our youngest student, I think we saw in the application was, I think, 14, 13 years old.
Okay.
So, I mean, if the school allows you to come to school, I don't see why.
Sure. Okay. And then we talked about the selection process. There's the different parts. There's statement, financial need, perseverance through challenges. There's engagement in their community. And then there's academics. There's those 5 different areas you guys talk about. Does any one of those have more weight than the others?
The statements.
The statements.
The statements is what gets graded the hardest among the other things. And that's only because we have so many students that have gaps everywhere else in their application that the statement is the only way we can get the student's story. We can get their understanding of why they're wanting to come to this specific college, why they're wanting to study what they're studying, what family or personal experience brought them to this point.
Right.
That is what mainly we will look at. Because, I mean, like I said, we've had students who were, have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, and then all of a sudden made a career change, and they are coming back to school to study something completely different than what they did before.
Right, yeah.
We have students who may have received FAFSA in prior years from getting a bachelor's degree, and then now obviously they're no longer eligible for financial aid, but the career that they intended to wasn't working out, and so they're now making a shift into that, and so it's not.
And by the way, you have heard her say FAFSA and WAFSA. If you're an international student,
it doesn't apply to you.
Doesn't apply to you. Don't worry about it.
Yep.
Those are for domestic students. So interesting. You talked about being notified. How do they get notified?
Yeah, via email. So we send out 2 emails. One is sent through the system, which is AwardSpring. Often those end up going into the student's email, whether that's a junk file, because your email may not recognize it.
Right.
And so I would suggest clearing out your inbox, because if your inbox is full and you're not able to receive emails, you won't know. And so that's often either junk mail, spam, but it's through AwardSpring. Like, it's just an alert that tells you, like, you have a notification in AwardSpring. And then we also send either a congratulation or a denial notice.
Okay.
One or the other, regardless of what it is for your case, to either, if you have a Seattle College's email, to that, but your personal email. And so I would also suggest making sure that that is correct before you submit it, because we do end up getting a lot of undeliverables.
Oh.
Because either you put 2 periods on somewhere that it wasn't supposed to be, or you put .con instead of .com, which is often, happens the most.
Annoying,
but
yeah.
we don't have the ability to go through every single email
Sure.
when we're sending these notifications out. And so just making sure that it's the most up to date. And then if you have additional secondary emails, those as well,
Right.
it gets sent to a massive listserv for those students. And so those are the 2 notifications. And then when you are awarded, you will also get reminders to complete the awards questionnaire that's required up until the date of the deadline. And so we want to ensure that if you're going to get it, we want to know that you got the information.
Right.
And then, of course, if you're not going to be attending Seattle colleges, we want to know that as well. So that way we're not bombarding you with emails of the same thing.
Right. So if you are in an English class, you would proofread your paper before you turned it in. Just like that, double check everything before you turn it in for consideration.
And
that
we're
includes
also available to check the application with you. And so if a question is confusing to you, you could either screenshot it or send it to us, or if there's something happening where it's not letting you submit the application, also let us know, because if it's happening to you, it could be happening to 50 other students and just no one is saying anything. And so if there's any issues that are coming along in the application when you're doing it, let us know, because then we're able to get it fixed through AwardSpring sooner than later, especially day of the deadline. We don't want any hiccups. And so if there is an issue, we want to know before it gets worse.
And if you're overseas and you're listening to this, you'll be like, what's AwardSpring? It's just simply a third-party software.
That is the software that you will use to apply.
Gotcha.
From there, all of that information is imported into our system. And so it's just a way for students to have one designated spot to do everything. You don't have to have all of these other additional things.
Yeah.
It's just, this is a system. We take all of the information. You don't have to worry about any of it.
Cool. You have a background in scholarships, it sounds like. So I always get asked about scholarships. We tell them about the Foundation Scholarship. The only other scholarship I kind of know about a little bit is Phi Theta Kappa. There's some money available there. But you've been around, so do you know of other scholarships international students might want to think about applying for outside of the Foundation Scholarship?
Yeah. I would still go into your specific interest area, because sometimes say the arts and sciences, they may have outside scholarships that don't pertain to us at all. That maybe is only on their listserv. The financial aid office may have their own listserv of other outside scholarships. And so we can't give you go specifically to, this scholarship, because again, they all range in ages, amounts, requirements, whether it's citizenship or not. And so pretty much any program that you may be interested, I would still suggest. So if you're going to be in the arts and sciences, maybe go on and just say, hey, is there specific scholarships that I could apply to that allow for international students to apply?
Do your research.
Yeah.
Used to be back in the, I'm older, so when I went to school, there were books that they were this thick, of all the scholarships out there. We didn't have the internet back then. But yeah, just now it's fairly easy, easier.
I think they have one, it might be called, I don't know if they changed the name. It used to be fastweb.com or something along those lines. I have it somewhere. I can't remember the name of it. But they have it's a whole system online that it's for all scholarships that are available. Not just maybe even for here, say in the East Coast or wherever else. It's just scholarships that are out there that year round. Our application is only one time per year,
right?
But there are applications that they're just always continuously taking in applications, or they always have one application every quarter.
Sure.
And so it doesn't hurt to just look up, scholarships for international students, or no residency required scholarships, just anything that you can find, because sometimes Google and all of these other systems will pop everything up.
So maybe I can get that link from you. I'll put the link in the description box, so you can go down and then click on that and go out and look for that money. Everybody is challenged as far as money goes. Do your research. We'll try to give you a little bit of help there. It talks a lot about campus involvement, volunteering, that kind of thing. What are some of the things you recommend students do to increase their chances? does student leadership seem a little bit better than like if they have a job on campus? Or do you guys like to see them having a job on campus? Or does having a job on campus reduce the likelihood that they'll get a scholarship?
Yeah. We like seeing students having a variety of things, because it gives us an idea of where our students are at. We have students who would love to be able to be volunteers and be in leadership, but they have a full-time job commitment. Right. And so that's often the inhibitor for them to be able to be involved. And then there's students who aren't able to have a job outside of campus because of their status. So school engagement is the only thing they can have. And so we'd love to see all forms of engagement, whether that's volunteering at a local church, whether that's volunteering at the library, whether that's being, I don't know, like in Key Club for students who are in high school, whether it's being in leadership or just, sporadic volunteer opportunities that come up in the areas or where you're at. We love to see all of it.
Right. And don't discount what you do in your communities, guys. A lot of kids think, oh, I have no experience. But hey, did you maybe work at a food fair for your club one day? I mean, that's at least something for you to put down. And if you aren't truly doing anything now, and you're never too young to start volunteering, being involved in your community or your whatever. It all helps. Really.
Even if it's once a week or once a month.
Whatever you can spare.
Yeah, whatever you can. And sometimes it doesn't even have to be that volunteer. There's often students who are maybe supporting a family member in caregiving, and that's something that they like to put on there is that when their parents and their full-time is taking care of their children and that takes up the most of their time. That's all part of who you are as a student. That's all something we want to see in students. So just because it's not what people may see as engagement or involvement, it still takes up your time outside of classes. And that's what we want to see is what are you doing outside of school?
And this is really important to hear because when I'm overseas, a lot of students in the regions that I serve, they're so used to it all being about grades. It's all about what's your grade point or how are you doing in school. Kind of the cool thing about the United States, in my opinion, is that we try to look at you as a more whole, the whole package. Student, yeah. So guys, we do things a little different here. We want to know who you are, what your story is. Yeah, of course, we want to see you getting good grades, but all these other things are really important as well. Let's see. I think we've covered most of the really important thing. I just want to check my notes here. Great. Well, is there anything else you want to make sure that they know that I haven't asked before we start to wrap this up? I think it's important that they get everything, all the information from you that we can while we have you here. And there's just some things I don't know what I don't know. Yeah. I mean, something I haven't asked that they need to hear about.
Yeah. I think if you're questioning any form of yourself academically, that's completely normal. I mean, it's easy for students who either are doing this themselves for the first time and they don't have family or some form of support system. It's often easy to get discouraged by an application, but we are truly here to help. And so we have office hours that are available for through Zoom. Of course, time difference may differ, but we can accommodate to a lot of students. I mean, I studied abroad when I was in college, and so the time difference was, I think, 11 or 16 hours.
Where'd you go?
I went to Uganda. So I studied in Kampala.
Shout out to Kampala.
And so that's often, what students we see a lot of. And so if you have any questions regarding the application, as small as it may seem, always send us an email with whatever questions that you have. But just make sure that you're writing the text in the actual text and not in the title subject line, because often we have gotten students who, write it through their phone and they're trying to send it and it says, I need help with da-da-da-da, but then it cuts off because it's a subject line. And so then I'm like, actually, can you repeat that? And so just make sure that, and then of course that it is in English. Often we won't catch everything and we can't understand all languages, unfortunately. Or just try to make it as simple as you can. Just say, I have a question on the application. We will follow up and ask what, and we can go from there.
So if you're a current student here at Seattle Colleges, definitely apply. You have nothing to lose here, guys. And you have a big window to do it in, so no excuses. If you're a prospective student, apply. They can, if they get awarded, they can actually inform admissions, and that can be put on their I-20. So that can be something you can show a visa officer. It's like, hey, I've already received a scholarship. Doesn't cover everything, but it is significant.
Yeah.
So
but
that's really good.
Making sure you communicate with us and the financial aid office for those things, because we don't have it in our system. We would have to notify the financial aid office because they have all of like the coding that says you have a scholarship from us. We give you the award notice, and often that's what students may want to use. But for more formal documents, you may need to go to the financial aid office and ask for that.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for your time. I learned a lot today myself. I'm going to have to listen to this episode a couple times to make sure I remember it all. It's really good stuff. Super, super big thanks to you. And thanks for all the work you guys do.
Happy to help.
Yeah, it's really great. We're just so happy that students are able to defray the costs of the university expenses.
College is not
expensive.
cheap.
So, yeah, especially in the States.
Yep.
It's just nuts.
And in Seattle, out of all places.
Seattle, yeah. All right.
It's a great city, though.
It is a great city, absolutely. And if you do your research, again, there's always ways. There's always ways, in my opinion. You got to just keep looking. All right, great to meet you. Thanks so much. You guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. We're here every Wednesday. Lots of great information, whether you come to Seattle colleges. We hope you come here. But if you go to another school as well, some of the stuff that we talked about today, it'll apply in other places. But this is kind of a Seattle colleges episode for sure. Take care. Thanks so much. Bye-bye. Conversations With is painstakingly crafted for you by the Seattle College's International Programs Department and supported by the lovely folks here on our campus. This show is produced and edited by me, Evan Franulovich. We welcome your emails and questions about coming to Seattle Colleges. Please reach out to us via our website or just give us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts, as this helps others discover the show. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, or YouTube at Seattle Colleges INTL. That's Seattle Colleges INTL. And be sure to check out all of the shows here on Conversations With. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.